Welcome to a pair of Bookends, the book club you can carry anywhere. We are your hosts and hopefully your new bookish pals. I'm Hannah MacDonald.
And I'm Lydia Clare. Welcome, Bookends, to our first podcast of 2023. Our January book club pick is the amazing short story collection Send Nudes by Saba Sams. A dazzling debut, these stories explore the female experience in all its contradictions and complexities. It will leave you reeling long after you've put it down.
Today we are joined by author of Send Nudes, the incredible Saba Sams. Saba Sams is a fiction writer based in London. Her stories have been featured in various publications such as The Stinging Fly, The Manchester Review, Litro, The Tangerine and Forge. In 2019, she was shortlisted for the White Review Short Story Prize, and her glorious short story collection, Send Nudes, is out in paperback on the 19th of January. Saba, welcome to a pair of Bookends.
Thank you so much.
So what we like to do first is throw people in at a deep end and ask them what they are currently reading.
I am reading Summer of My Amazing Luck by Miriam Toews. I'm a third of the way through. I've never read any Miriam Toews before. It's her debut. It was pressed into my hands by my agent, who thought it would kind of help me with my novel, which I'm currently writing. And it's brilliant. The voice it's about a kind of single mother on benefits and all of the kind of other mothers and women in her life who all live in this same kind of project block of flats. And it's funny and it's fast paced and it's kind of, it juggles the past and the present in a really clean but also busy way. And I'm finding it really helpful. I think, it's easy with a novel to feel bogged down. And this has it just has a lot of energy, and it's spurring me on. So
that's amazing. I mean, I've heard about, how do you say her name? Miriam Toews?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's right.
I don't know how to say her name. But I've not read any of her work, and I think it was Meg Cowrie, wasn't it, that said that she recommended another of her books on the podcast, and I'm like desperate to get to it, but that definitely sounds like my cup of tea.
It's right on your street.
100%. Mothers, women, centering, exploring class. I'm there.
True.
Love that.
It's I always find that when people when someone mentions someone I've never heard of before, which Meg did, I then find that all of a sudden everybody mentions them, and I'm like, oh my goodness, how does everyone know this secret before I knew?
Though, isn't she? She's just had something adapted. I think one of her books has just been adapted to, is it into a film?
I don't know. You're the queen of adaptation.
Yeah.
I was just looking in the back of my copy, and she's written 8 novels or something.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I'd never read any. I'd heard of her, but I'd not gone there. But no, I think I'm hooked.
Oh my goodness.
The rest of them.
I'm adding that to my wish list straight up.
Bookends, come on, get your lists out. It's getting too long now. It's ridiculous. It's like half my book. We would absolutely love to hear a bit of Send Nudes. So would you be okay giving us a reading today?
Yes, I'd love to.
Thank you.
So I'm going to read from Here Alone, which is a story in the middle of the book. And I'll start from the beginning. The bar was called Opium. Emily walked straight from her office and entered through an unmarked black door held open with a brick. There was a slot of blue light humming out onto the pavement, and when she stepped into the corridor, she noticed that a bare bowl dipped in blue plastic coating was hanging from the ceiling. The corridor led to a flight of perforated metal stairs. Emily's heels kept getting caught in the holes on the way down. There were more people than Emily had expected inside. The strange light shadowed their faces, brought out the imperfections in their skin. She ordered a whiskey and stood by the seating area along the opposite wall. The sofas were leather and all taken. She took her phone out of her handbag and used it as a mirror to reapply her lipstick. The music got louder suddenly, or maybe it was just that a song came on that she recognised. She spent a moment trying to place it before giving up. A man came and stood near her. She cupped her glass in her hand like a bowl and swilled it slowly in circles. She knew that she wasn't a beautiful woman, but sexy felt like something not so far off. "You all right?" she said. The man looked at her. He was clean-shaven, with acne scars peppered across his cheeks. a large ridge in his forehead. His body was hard and triangular, his pale blue shirt a little tight around the shoulders, a little loose around the waist. Emily pursed her lips, looked into his eyes for too long a moment. This was her favourite part, the exchange of signs. He stepped slightly closer. "You want another?" he said, and she raised her chin. The drinks came. He told her he liked a woman who drank whiskey. "All the women I know drink white wine spritzers," he said. "They order Prosecco at dinner. It's juvenile." She felt the whiskey burn her esophagus on its way down. She reached out and grazed her thumb along his jaw. There was enough drink in her to do that. He looked up in surprise. She felt her eyes get lazy for a second. "Come upstairs," she said, "for a cigarette." Emily brought her whiskey with her, and when they got outside, she knocked it back in one. She put the empty glass down on a plastic table dotted with raindrops. It had rained all day, but now the sky was cloudless, an expanse of perfect black behind the hazy dome of light pollution coming up off the city. Emily offered the man a cigarette. He held it between his lips while she lit it for him. Orange flared in his pupils. "I don't smoke usually," he said. She shrugged. She didn't much care. "Are you here alone?" he asked. She nodded. He seemed to like that. He put his palm on the side of her arse and smoothed her back pocket while the bouncer looked on. She rolled onto the tips of her toes so that her face was close to his. She asked him a few questions about himself. When he spoke, she could taste his breath. His name was Toby. He worked in a bank, though not with the money. He'd come to the bar with his girlfriend of 2 years, who'd ended their relationship and left without finishing her drink. He didn't ask Emily about her job. She told him she was a hairdresser, though she wasn't. They caught the district line. They made eye contact through their reflections in the windows, rather than looking straight at each other. She put her hand on his thigh, trailed her fingers up and down it, warming him up. She got closer and closer to touching his crotch, until he had to put his own hand on top of hers to stop her. "You're so hot," he whispered. In her flat, she got 2 glasses from the kitchen and left him in her bedroom with the wine while she showered. She stood with her face lifted to the spray, the water coming off her dirty with makeup. She slicked her legs, armpits and crotch with a film of conditioner and shaved meticulously. Dark wires spun down the plug hole. After, she reapplied her entire face, misting it with hairspray so it held. In the bedroom, Toby had almost finished the wine. He looked bored, sitting on the edge of the bed with his legs crossed, scrolling his phone. "You took your time," he said. The sex was unremarkable. His hands were slippery, and it was only when he folded his arms behind his head that she began to enjoy herself. He made a sound when he came that was short and chirpy, a single high note on a piano. After, he pulled the covers over himself, suggesting he'd be staying the night. "How many people have you slept with?" he said into the dark. No one had ever asked her this before, though she'd hoped they would. 20, she replied. A few years ago, on a bus, Emily had overheard one teenage girl explain to another that the appropriate amount of people to have slept with is half your age plus 7. Emily's true number was in fact 6, including Toby and the spray can of deodorant she'd lost her virginity to at age 14. She hadn't come, but she hadn't minded. She knew even then that vaginal orgasms were for the most part a myth created by men. The can was slimy when it came out, with a speck of blood on the very tip. It reminded her of a tadpole, or the dots sometimes found on the yolk of an egg. She wiped it off with toilet paper and put it back in the cabinet over the bathroom sink. Her mother hated it when she borrowed her things. "You're the first woman I've gone to bed with in over a year," Toby said. He sounded proud of himself. "Other than my girlfriend," he added. "My ex-girlfriend, that is." His hand sat on the mound of her pussy while he spoke, clammy and unmoving.
Amazing.
Fantastic. Well, do we have to do the podcast, or can we just listen to the whole?
Can you just read the whole book or personal audio book? That would be great. Thank you.
With my cough.
That is my personal favourite of the collection. I mean, I really struggled to pick between. There's 3 of them that were like my most favourite, and I really struggled to narrow it down. But I think that one, there was just something about that story that I'm just obsessed with. And I think in most, like in all of your stories, it's so like visceral and like vivid, and you know, it feels like these scenes like I've
just never known realism like it.
No,
like you have a way of capturing that the reality in these pages. It's honestly, Bookends, if you're listening and that has sparked any sort of emotion in you, please go out and get this book.
Whether it sparked emotion or not, just buy the bloody book. I'm putting it in the show notes. Get it ordered.
Hannah's going to kill you if you don't.
It's so good. No, honestly, you will not regret it. I flew through this. I inhaled this in about 24 hours.
I know. I'm so sorry it's so long to write, but we literally inhaled it so quickly.
It's like forgotten about all that now. Right away.
It's the sign of a good book. So let's start with the title of the book, which is a very eye-catching title. And I mean, before, when this first came out, I remember seeing this in a bookshop and I was like, I have to have this book.
The cover alone.
Yeah, you see something that says Send Nudes on it. And I mean, I remember seeing one of my friends on Instagram had just like took a picture of your book outside a bookshop because she was so obsessed with the title. And she's not a bookish person at all, but like that's what, you know, that's what it does. It literally grabs your attention straight away. And obviously the titular story of the book is literally an exploration of the concept of sending nudes and how women sort of navigating online spaces is kind of intrinsically linked to their bodies. But what triggered that story in particular, and why this title for the book?
Well, the story came first. The title was kind of the last thing that was decided about the whole book. And Send Nudes, the story, was written really quite far towards the end. And kind of by that point I knew what I was doing. You know, I knew that I was writing about women, particularly young women. I knew that I was writing about the body, our relationship with the internet and with online dating. And, you know, I think for a while, when I first started writing the book, I was kind of writing whatever came to me and whatever sounded fun. And then by the end, I was trying to fill gaps that I hadn't looked at. So in Send Nudes, she's slightly older, you know, she's kind of like 30, maybe approaching 30. I can't remember if I say or not. And I knew I kind of wanted to go there. And I'd spent a lot of time with children and with adolescents, and I wanted to jump forward and kind of, in a way, look at how these formative experiences that we have when we're young carry forward, and what we hold on to, and what kind of repeats itself, and what we leave behind. And I wrote the story, and it was quite short, and it's definitely, you know, it just had a great title, and I wanted to give the title to the whole collection. It's not that it was ever my favorite story, or that I think it speaks best to the collection. And that was kind of a worry that I had, I think, when I was like, let's call the whole book Send Nudes, is that people would jump and read that story, Send Nudes. You know, because I like it, but it's definitely not the story that I feel represents my writing as much as some of the others, you know.
Was there any pushback at all about this title, or was everyone like, no, love it?
Everyone loved it.
Of course.
Everyone loved it. I think I've been really lucky, you know. I have like my editor actually is different now from the editor that I had with Send Nudes, but she just completely got what I was trying to do. I think it might have even been her idea, you know, to just go straight for Send Nudes. And then I remember kind of the publicist saying how she couldn't wait to send emails with Send Nudes as like the title. It felt, I think it felt fresh and fun, and everyone was quite excited by it.
It's a phrase that really captures like modern sort of online culture, isn't it? And I'm gonna butcher my use of this word. Is it zeitgeist? It's zeitgeist. Yeah, okay. I felt like it really captured that. But I'm obsessed with this title. I think it's like one of my favorite titles ever.
No, see, have started seeing it everywhere as well, since like it's on t-shirts, and people every time anyone sees Send Nudes anywhere, you know, that I know, they'll send it to me.
I love that.
and like So I've seen a really gruesome kind of edited photo of an eyeball where the veins of the eyeball are made into the words and made into the letters. Yeah, which is like quite visceral and quite me, but also and then there's that show. I don't know if you guys have seen the new, I think is it Channel 4?
Was it called Send Nudes?
Called Send Nudes, yeah.
Oh, no, I've not seen that.
It's quite the watch. It's about people who are considering a certain kind of plastic surgery.
Okay.
I mean, I watched it obviously because of the title.
Of course.
Hosted by Vogue Williams. And and basically the public vote on whether or not you should get this surgery.
Wow.
We've
really reached that point, haven't we?
Yeah.
Oh, God. But talking about titles, because I mean there are some fantastic titles.
Was that a segue?
I believe it was a segue. That was professional.
Did you feel that?
Did you not feel that? Saying,
slick.
Shit hot is what they call me. But yes, the collection opens with this story, Tenderloin, which is just, I mean,
so good.
Like literally read the story, guys, and you'll know how just fantastic that title is. And I believe it kind of epitomizes your ability to constantly surprise the reader in terms of like how the events unfold. Is it plot or is it characters and their decisions that influence the path of your narrative?
Is absolutely characters. Plot is so far from what
I was like, who plot?
Which is not. I actually got a amazing review in the Rolling Stone magazine yesterday, saying that Send Nudes was like a vibes short story collection. That was how
I saw this.
And it was kind of the first. I kind of had this like realization that it was actually okay that I don't think about plot, and it's actually maybe it's my thing, and maybe I can just run with that, which is really nice. Because especially with Tenderloin, I remember I was on a roundabout. I was walking to see my friend. I had my son who was a baby in a sling, and Grace, the main character's voice, just like arrived in my head. And I was just kind of thinking, and my mind was just wandering, and I was probably having a bit of a block. I was having to write quite a lot then because I was doing a creative writing master's, and so it was just like, this is your week to write a story for the workshop, churn it out. And I would kind of have no ideas and be really distracted, and then and this voice just, and I knew she was a butcher's daughter, this kind of the first few sentences of the story, which I don't think have actually changed, just like came to me in her voice, and she felt so clear. And then it was just about following her decisions and like kind of just like walking with her. And the end, I had no idea that would be the end until I was writing it.
And I feel like as a reader, that's what keeps you reading it, because you have no idea where this is going to go, but you have to know, you have to see it through with her, you know. And I think your writing process is very much similar to the reading process in terms of like, we're just going with the character, we just go with her and hope for the best and see what happens.
That's really interesting, and obviously great.
Well,
does that happen quite often then, that these voices, the character's voice just arrives in your head, or was that just specific to that story?
No, I think that happens I think that's most of the stories, and sometimes I think the same as like why I follow the character, or why I follow the voice, and why I don't think about plot so much, is this same thing of always trying to like entertain myself and keep myself excited, and have it be an exploration or an adventure. And I think I find it quite easy to like fall in love with a character or something new, especially, which is why I really loved writing a short story collection. It feels like meeting someone new, and that first exciting, mysterious part and that means that sometimes I can jump into a new voice too quickly, I think. I'll spend like an hour walking around the world with this voice in my head and like translating everything I see into this voice. It's kind of like, yeah, like shrugging on a new persona, and then I'll like get to the page and I'll have so much fun, and I might run out of steam, with it. Maybe it's not a voice that I can properly transfer to like an actual story that works, but definitely it's that. And that's what I love about writing. Like, that's what I'm in it for, is the voices and kind of that real sense of fun, I think. That kind of where is this person going to take me is really what I find exciting. And then when you're halfway through the story, you're just like, okay, next. I'm always jumping to the next one.
I love that. So in this collection, there is sort of little that you shy away from, whether it's menstrual blood, oral sex scenes, miscarriage. There's nothing that seems sort of too taboo for you to write about and to tackle as a writer. But why is it important for you to write about these topics and I guess write about them in such a visceral way?
I was thinking about when people kind of try to ask me to describe my book, and the kind of the one-liner or trying to coin what it's really about, and I find that really hard. And I didn't know if it was because it was a short story collection, so it's harder than a novel to kind of coin. And I was constantly trying to like find themes, and I think actually for me, when like all of this visceral stuff, all of the like menstrual blood, the body, all of this for me is just like the backdrop of the world. It's just my experience. And so when I'm writing, I'm not thinking like, oh, let's put a period in it. It's just like a period has to be in it because my period, and it's like I can never find a way to describe my book that feels like as purposeful and clean as maybe I'm expected to, because all of this stuff just creeps in. I really never sit down and think like, okay, now I'm going to write something that's really visceral because I really want to create that as like the vibe of the story. It's never as kind of clean cut as that. I actually just, that for me, that's life. And so that's the bulk of the story is that life stuff. And the same with sex, or that like the miscarriages. It's like I don't think I was ever like, I'm gonna write a story about a miscarriage. It just was like, it just felt like living. And when you're living in the head of your character, this stuff comes in and you can't really turn away from it.
I think that's what makes it so real and so natural, the writing, because it's all these bits of life that make kind of, it's hard to articulate, but it makes up the world. And it doesn't feel like, oh, I'm just gonna put this in because it'll make people go, oh, or it'll put people off, or it'll make people go, oh my gosh, can't believe she wrote about that. It feels like this is just part of the characters' lives. This is just part of their world. And I think that really helps, again, with that feeling of reality and naturalism with it.
I think it's also just really refreshing to read about these things written so like explicitly, because I think so often, we've been told as women to like, to be quiet about these sorts of things because it makes other people uncomfortable, like, we're told like, I was told growing up, like, not to mention like my period and stuff like that. If I ever said anything, it'd be like, oh, like, don't really talk about those sorts of things. And I'm like, why? Like, we're all going through it. Like, why can I not speak about it? Why is it such a like? How have I made the atmosphere awkward by bringing something up that's like a life experience for like half the population? And I think that's why I found this collection so brilliant, is that you had these moments where you were exploring these sort of taboo things, but like Lydia said, it did just feel like, well, that's the reality of these people. There's not anything to be ashamed of, and we're so often taught to feel shame about these things. And this, there was no shame in the way you explored them.
Yeah. Yeah, it's quite, as like traumatizing as it is that we've all had to be silent about this stuff, it's also like I love to walk into that silence and feel it. Like I feel really blessed to be able to do that, and also to, like, I'm thinking about that scene in I May Destroy You when she like passes a blood clot. Have you guys seen this? And I can't remember what her Italian boyfriend's called, but he's like poking it and he's so excited by this blood clot.
Oh, did you say I May Destroy You?
Yeah.
Oh, I loved that. Sorry, I missed that then. Right,
Yeah.
okay.
I just think that there is actually loads of space to create cool stuff because none of it's been done, no one's been talking about periods or putting periods on TV. So then you can like have this kind of really quite charming, sweet scene of this guy playing with a blood clot. Like I found that quite heartwarming,
Yeah.
And also completely surprising, even though it's such a normal thing. And that's like, it's a really nice space to create art in, like something that we can all relate to but have never even seen before. And yeah, that's kind of how I feel when I'm writing about periods or bodies, really, with women's bodies.
It's crazy how groundbreaking it is, though. Like in
this
day and age, like how groundbreaking this stuff is. But yeah, I'm thankful that you wrote this anyway. Not to sound like really wanky, but but here we are.
It's an exciting time for fiction, I think.
Absolutely, yeah,
definitely. Now, can I pick a favorite story? This is just me saying, can I pick a favorite story? Am I allowed? Because I feel like you'll tell me off.
I'll allow it.
Thank you.
I'll allow it. I mean, you've got the writer here. Would she allow
I
it?
loved it. Always.
So my favourite story, if it's okay, is Snakebite. I think it's a fascinating
So good.
mix of like uni boozy culture, handling grief, how women don't always know how to communicate with each other properly. Like for some reason I feel like women are always put on this pedestal, like, we are the empaths and the communicators and we can always be the one that sorts things out. And it's like,
actually, no,
not all of us are capable of that. And also there is some great comedic elements to that story, especially with Meg, the protagonist, roommates all having varying degrees of skin conditions and being introduced as said the one with psoriasis. Like I'm just honestly, I live for those moments. Like honestly, it was hysterical.
So good.
I love something funny. So I was brilliant. But what role for you did these comedic moments have for you in your writing of that story specifically?
I mean, I guess there's all like I could say the kind of more like inside the mind of the writer, which is that it's quite a dark, sad story in a lot of ways, and having a bit of humor in there is nice. But again, really, I'm always just trying to entertain myself, I'm lonely and bored in my room on my laptop and desperately trying to churn a story out, and jokes just help. And also uni was so funny. Like writing that story, not all of the stories are my lived experience, but that one is the whole uni world is like very close to my experience. And just remembering it and being back there and kind of thinking of like the way that my friends were silly was a really like, it was just funny. I just like, I wanted to translate that world of quite light humor, even though actually a lot of quite formative, quite dark things are going on. There's this like devil may care, or I think silly is the word that I'm looking for. This real kind of light silliness and then I think with short stories, and particularly with short stories about young women, what I was trying to do was, you don't have that much space in a short story, right? So you have a few days or a few weeks, maybe a few months of this character's life, and you have to create something which is going to kind of cast a shadow that's bigger than the story itself, so you want to leave the character walking around in the reader's head, and you want to hint that whatever's going on in this story is going to create a kind of echo throughout the character's life. And I can't remember why I would start talking about this. But I just like, yeah, I think in terms of kind of humor and having fun, like that's the stuff also that lasts, as well as all of this like trauma and these weird relationships and this suffering. You know, you have to, when I'm sitting there thinking back over my real memories of my real uni experience, I'm remembering the good stuff as well as the bad stuff, and I wanted to create a story that could do both.
It's the fact that her flatmates were introduced and they're all having a conversation around the table talking about, do you use E45 or bio oil? Or,
and they're all like scratching each other's arms at one point, aren't they?
Scratch me and I'll scratch you. Like, just hysterical. Like, and that's all I need to know about them. I don't need to know anything more than the fact that they've got Sumerian skin conditions. That's enough. Thank you very much.
But the thing is, it's not. It sounds far fetched, but it's really not.
It's really
like
not.
I knew those girls.
Yeah.
Yeah, the people that I met at uni, like, it's so disturbing now to think about.
I mean, some people that you met at uni are nice, though, aren't they? I have no skin condition.
Oh, you've got many great qualities, Liz.
Thank you.
So many of these stories capture blended families and sort of unconventional families, the parent-child dynamic and its many nuances and complexities. But was it a conscious choice for you to write sort of a varied range of families? And did you want to highlight anything in particular about the way these families inhabit the modern world?
Yeah, I'm trying not to give that same answer again that I gave to the period, but it's so my experience, you know, to have like a stepmom and a half brother, and it kind of never, giving someone like a normal nuclear family felt further from reality to me than going the other way. And also it's a fun space to explore new relationships, isn't it? You know, when you've got a family dynamic with kind of brand new people in it, like a sister that you have just been given at age 11, or you know, a brother who's just been fostered, and it's a way of having a character who's kind of formed, not fully formed, but kind of formed without this sibling, kind of trying to mold around this new person, within a family dynamic which always feels so much more messy and so much more consuming. And even just in terms of like the time that we spend with our family members, you have so many different sides, and you can't just turn yourself on in the way that you can in school or whatever, you know. Like I don't know, my sister has seen more of me than anyone really in my life, you know, and also seen me change and grow, which we do so much in those years that I was writing about in Send Nudes, you know. Like I went through so many different personas, I think, from the age of like 6 to 16. I was a new person every year, you know, a new person at every school. It was, but my sister could see the real me, you know, not to sound really cheesy, but it was like,
no, it's true.
And also, like, you don't bother shrugging on the new person when you're at home with just your sister, you know. I would like drop all that at the door and just be myself. And I think like, it's a real privilege to have siblings, and I'm really interested in siblings and looking at siblings, and also in my characters who don't have siblings. I think they're quite interesting too, you know, like in Tenderloin, when kind of the family is just Grace and her dad, and the way that we bond with each other and the way that we keep things from each other is so different when you don't have, you know. I just think if Grace had a sibling, what would her life look like? And yet it was so important for the story that she didn't, and also that she didn't have a mum, and that she was this kind of like, you know, real like island of a woman. And so I think I do think about family and also about kind of the world at the moment. And
I think like the story that probably moved me the most was I think it's the final story. It's today's Square, and the mother and daughter relationship in that, like, it really like broke my heart. And I mean, obviously, like, it was sort of a perfect way of capturing, you know, how lockdown was a really awful time for some people. And I just thought, like, the way you captured that mother-daughter dynamic between these two characters, you know, it was so powerful, and it really had that sense of like us against the world. And I think like that would have been interesting had there have been more than just the mother and daughter, because she's an only child as well, isn't she? The daughter in that. Am I right in thinking that? I don't want to say it with my chest if it's not. But it's just them two, isn't it? And I think, you know, how different would it be for them if, you know, they had a bigger family and they had more support, you know, how different things might be. And there's something like really tragic in that. And I know I'm really trying not to like drag the conversation down, because I know we've been talking about humor and stuff like that, but there is something so like tragic in that, and you know, that really did move me. And I'm really interested in family dynamics. I think there's something, I've already used the word powerful, but there is something really powerful about family dynamics, and it totally shapes you as a person, doesn't it? So
you can see how these characters are product of their environment in terms of like having a sibling has made them like this, and has shaped their personalities.
Yeah,
very much so.
Yeah, I think also like there's a lot of single mothers in my book, and you know, as much as the young women are the main characters, the single mothers are like quite an interesting kind of jump into the future, I think, in a lot of ways. And yeah, back to the kind of family dynamic and the kind of pressure that's on a mother as a single mother, and you know, with one child as well, and that kind of duality where, yeah, it is us against the world, but then there's also just like, you know, this holiday that they're supposed to go on in today's Square is just like all down to this one mother to get her child on holiday, and obviously the child sees no, you know, has no understanding of the reality of how hard that is. And all of the mother wants is for it to happen. And yeah, it's that, you know, the mothers and the girls as well, with the, I think like, yeah, single mothers and kind of a single daughter seems to crop up a lot for me. And I think there's this kind of interesting mirroring in, you know, with this daughter growing up and the mother kind of watching her daughter grow up, and you see history kind of repeat itself. But then I feel drawn to those family dynamics as well, in an opposite way to kind of the families I was talking about initially, with the steps and the halves and kind of all of these characters coming in and out. It's quite interesting, especially in the space of a short story, which is so much smaller, to just have these like two kind of characters just leaning on each other. Yeah,
I've got a quote.
She is.
I don't know if you've listened to us before, Saba, but I'm queen of the quote.
Yes.
I love a quote. I love to read one. So I have got one from another one of my favourite stories.
It better be as good as Saba's, otherwise I'm switching off.
Listen, it won't be. Just set your expectations below, everybody, because I will not sound as good as she does. It's just a very short bit. It's just a short bit, but I feel like it's a perfect little tidbit of. Okay.
What's it from? Which story?
It's from The Bread.
The Bread, love that one.
I met the man on the last night of the festival by a stall selling chips and onion rings. I didn't fancy him as much as I pretended to myself that I did. The man's tent was slightly larger than the one I was sharing with Eliza, though the exact same brand. I hadn't showered in 4 days. My vagina smelt like prawn cocktail crisp. I left straight after and bought a hot chocolate in a polystyrene cup. The teenage boy at the stall told me he hadn't slept the entire weekend, not even for a minute. His smile was massive and unruly against the pastel sky. Now, I don't know if you can tell why I chose that section to read, but my vagina smelt like prawn cocktail crisp is one of the greatest lines I've ever read in a book ever. And that's it. I had to share it with you all because I openly cackled to myself when that happened, when that line came out, because I was like, yeah, thank you for saying that, because You have a way of highlighting and
Sorry, is this you telling the podcast that your vagina too smells like prawn cocktail crisp?
after 4 days of no showering, I bet yours will smell like prawn cocktail crisp. Thank you very much. Not on a daily basis, but I'm just saying, you festival goers, I know. But you have highlighting and celebrating and sharing these mundanities of life, like and I know that we've kind of talked about it before, but you have like a really keen eye. What is it about the minutiae of life that means it makes its way into your writing so often? I find that it feels like a celebration of like the tiniest things, like smells and taste and these kind of sensual things. How do you do it? Just tell me, how do you do it?
I love that. That's amazing to hear. I do think if I'm stuck in a story, I'll be like, okay, what does it smell like? You know, or what is it? Or what does it taste like? Just as a way to kind of jump out of the words, and and get my other senses involved. And I think it's a way of keeping moving. And sometimes I'll be in my real life and there'll be a detail and I'll notice a smell or whatever and I'll like write it down on my phone and maybe use it later. But yeah, it's you know, it all kind of, the senses all come in, I hope. Yeah, I also think about sound quite a lot, like the sound of the words, and I read things back out loud and I'm trying to engage all my senses. And I think that's because that's what I like in other books that I read. But also because it's nice. It's like it feels like I'm having a wider experience when I'm just like writing. So yeah, but thank you.
Right. Thank you for the line of my life.
I'm gonna get that printed off and put framed for
Honestly,
you.
if I don't get like a frame for Christmas with my vagina smell like prawn cocktail crisp, I'm gonna be very upset.
We'll send you a pic. We'll send you a pic of when it's framed.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like I could never look at a packet of prawn cocktail crisp.
No.
Just review online.
I won't be able to now either. I honestly hadn't really thought about that line that much until just now.
It's beautiful.
But I'm really glad that it's touched you.
It's touched me. It's resonated with me.
She's not going to shut up about it now.
I won't, honestly. Honestly, I won't.
So, I mean, how I was going to start off my next question is what I particularly loved about this book. But I mean, at this point, we just love the whole thing, don't we? That's what we keep saying about it. You know, I really love that. No, we love the whole thing. It's amazing.
We're sycophantic. Get over it.
But what I did particularly love about the book was the way you captured how messy and complex women are, which we've already kind of spoken about. But how the women in your story sort of embrace emotion in the extreme. I don't know if that's the right way to phrase it, but you know, for example, like Lara in Snakebite, with her sort of reckless behavior, her sort of self-destructiveness, her bouts of party and one night stands, in Here Alone, when Emily's sort of falling hopelessly in love, gone 0 to 100 real quick with Toby, and then when that sort of fizzles, you know, she calls him sick for 3 days in a row, and it's all very to the extreme. And then, you know, finally her eating, one of my favorite moments ever in a story is her eating carbonara with her bare hands. There's something so like, I don't know how to describe it, and I was trying to think of words to describe it last night, but it's a feeling. It's so like charged and like electric, the way you write these women. It's almost like primal. But what drew you to writing women in this way? It's a long question. I'm so sorry.
It's a good question. It's great. Yeah, you're right. It is primal, I think. It's very kind of, can I swear?
Go for it.
Oh, of course
it's
you
like,
can.
It's very just fuck you, isn't it?
Yeah,
like eating carbonara with your hands, kind of taking yourself on a date and eating with your hands. And like, yeah, I think I, you know, with Emily and Here Alone, and kind of constantly hyping up this almost hysteria in a way, just to have it kind of level out and just crash back to just being completely there for yourself. I think that's what I was doing with her. And like I I love that. I love that primalness in all of us. And I love that, you know, I think I spend so much of the collection kind of looking at where we like mislearn things or like, you know, lock something up inside us and you know, have it come out in a situation, or, you know, and all that shame and all of that. And then there kind of has to be these moments where that's all just like evaporates, and what's left is like, you know, just like you and some pasta, or, you know, it's like it just kind of the bones of it, and underneath it, and like what pleasure is and what it really is, you know, without all the kind of like, yeah, like dressing up this like expectation of sex versus like, you know, what we really want, or like how we look versus how we feel. And I think I'm really interested in feeling, and kind of feeling versus thought, and how thought is like at the top of the hierarchy, you know, and then feelings are just kind of so bottom of the pecking order, it feels like to me a lot of the time. And I don't feel really clocked into how my body feels that much. And, you know, I'm so up here when I'm in my life. And so yeah, I'm drawn to those moments. I think just personally I'm drawn to the primal, to the kind of big crashing fuck you moments.
Yeah, I really enjoyed those moments, and I think this collection really taught me how much I actually suppress myself, and
it kind of makes you want to do a fuck you moment. It kind of makes you feel like you can, because so much of what we do is contain it, you know. You can't do that. You can't do this. You shouldn't do that. You shouldn't feel that. You shouldn't show this.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of the stories in this collection are about women kind of just doing it.
Yeah.
Regardless of motive or regardless of consequence, but very much kind of that instinctive, like, yeah, do you ever held something really precious in your hand and wanted to snap it? It's that feeling. Like, I feel like a lot of these characters, like, I'm terrible for it. I like, please don't give me anything that's valuable, because I will break it. I find it really hard to resist, but like that feeling, and I feel like a lot of the characters in these novels snap it and just go, see what happens. Whereas I feel like a lot of us are contained.
It's quite like impulsive, like, you know, what are our true selves when we allow ourselves to be impulsive and to have those first impulses and not to block them.
Me, impulsive? Never.
Most impulsive person I've ever met.
There's this really this great scene that always comes back to me in Eileen by Ottessa Moshfegh, where, do you remember this? She tries on a dress in a shop, and she sticks her house key through the pocket and just like rips the pocket open, and it's like you can feel the release. You can just feel her be like, and yeah, that scene comes back to me a lot, and I think it's like inspired me a lot. But also, you know, I like, as I'm writing these characters, I desperately want to give them this release. And so we need to give it to ourselves. Like, you know, why do I want to see a character snap so much, but I still don't snap in my actual life? You know what I mean?
Yeah. I feel you.
Don't we all? So lastly, I just wanted to ask something that is separate from the content of the stories, but you feature a quote from Veronica by Mary. Is it Gaitskill or Gaitskill?
I say Gaitskill, but I could be totally wrong.
Gaitskill.
I say Gaitskill, but
Gaitskill. Okay.
Let's call it a northern thing, the Gaitskill.
Gaitskill.
So that's so you feature this quote at the start of the collection. I will read it, because any opportunity to read a quote, and I'm here. You know what I mean? I know you love the sound of my voice, guys. So just go. So this opens up the collection. Yes, we were stupid for disrespecting the limits placed before us, for trying to go everywhere and know everything. Stupid, spoiled, and arrogant. But we were right too. I was right. I mean, it's a fantastic quote, and
It
it's a book we featured before on the podcast and we loved. Can you shed a bit more light on why you chose to include this at the beginning of the book?
I had written the whole book, and I was reading Veronica for the first time, and it's such a good novel on so many things, but it's really, the thing that I was so excited by was, this character who's kind of looking back at her own youth from a place of like illness, no longer beautiful, poverty, like, like, and is kind of looking back and completely judging herself, but also this very kind of consistent. I think that last line of that quote, I was right too, that part. And she is right. She was right then and she's right now. And it's like, it's just feels so brave to me, this kind of like this way that we go through life and we make all of these mistakes and we're spoiled and we're naive and then we're, like nasty and bitter and always we're right. It's like, it's such a, it just feels it feels like you can kind of gather up all of the mistakes you've made and all of the insecurities you've had and all of the ways that the world has kind of fucked you over, and there's like still this kind of kernel of like real like truth and brave, like you've met the world and you've done it, you've been there, and you just like gave all you could in that moment. And I just like I just read that quote and I was just like, that's what I was trying to do with my book. Like, that's exactly it. I was trying to accept how complex and how full of mistakes being a young woman is. But also I was trying to say like, yeah, but we were right as well as all of that. Like everything we did was bang on. And I just like, that was kind of, it's such a great quote. I love it so much.
it is.
And it was such a it was such an amazing moment to find it and to kind of be like, yes, that's it. And it was at just the right time as well. I think it was like the book was just about to come out, and I could just add it in before it was printed.
Meant to be.
Now I got a quick fire round. Now we've never done this on the podcast
Can
before.
I say I was not consulted before the quick fire round was included in the podcast?
We're here, we're ready. Are you ready?
I'm nervous.
Terrified.
Yeah.
Shaking.
Okay. I hope you're ready. Okay. No, I'm not. I'm pathetic. I can't stick to anything, so I'm not going to restrict you in terms of time. But it's not to be a quick fire. But it's supposed to be quick fire. But I won't actually you won't be shouted at if you don't stick to quick. Lydia might shout at you though. She's on one.
I'm on one.
Okay. Are you ready?
I spent 4 hours on the bus today. I'm on one.
So if you had to choose one story as your favourite, which would it be?
Tenderloin.
Love that. Which of these stories would you expand into a novel?
Snakebite.
Nice. If you had to become one of the characters, who would it be and why?
Oh my god.
That's a tricky one.
I'd be Stella from Blue Forever.
Nice.
Because she's so young. She's got the whole world ahead of her, and I think she's learning fast, and it's going to go well.
Which of these stories would you adapt with unlimited budget
into like a film?
Mm-hmm. Well, film or series, you choose.
Oh, The Mothers and the Girls.
Nice.
Into a film, because I just think that world you'd need a big budget, and it would be really fun to be on that set and be like, that I like kind of grew up in that world, so I think I'd like to be there making sure they got it right,
Yeah.
And
who would be your director of choice?
I have Andrea Arnold. I think. Yeah. Fish Tank. Have you seen Fish Tank?
Fish Tank.
No.
Michael Fassbender. It's one of my favourite films of all time. Oh,
She's really good.
Sorry. Okay,
I'm
I'll watch it.
sorry.
I'll watch it. I'll watch it.
Fish
Report
tank.
yeah,
We're
and
watching
also-
it tonight.
There's also a short film she did with Danny Dyer in it, which is also amazing. It's B, is it B something?
Yeah, it's
Can't remember.
escaped me.
Bee
But
Sting.
yeah. Is it Bee
No.
Sting?
No, I don't think it is.
Oh, it's
But
gonna
anyway.
irritate me now.
Sorry.
Finally, what authors have inspired you?
Jhumpa Lahiri is I just think she can do anything. How can she do anything? She can do short stories and long short stories and really short novels, and it's amazing. Jesmyn Ward, Salvage the Bones was a book that I reread like multiple times when I was writing Send Nudes. Just the best kind of young woman character ever. Yeah, the visceral and the birth and all of that in it, I just love. And Young Skins by Colin Barrett was kind of the first short story collection that I was like, okay, I want to do a short story collection. I was like, this is really cool.
Amazing.
Is that the end of the quick fire round?
Yeah,
That was good.
it was good, wasn't it?
Yeah, I enjoyed it.
Okay, you just
I know-
annoyed that you weren't consulted first.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You didn't feel like the pressure was on too much for you, did you?
I was worried. I had no idea what you were going to ask me, but I was just like, I didn't know what way it was going to go.
I think next time we get an interrogation light and we get a timer, me in the corner with an egg timer. Add up the answer, maybe like the mastermind music.
Love that. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Spitballing ideas.
Oh, I have to do cultural recommendations now, don't I?
Yeah, that'd be great.
I
if you
do.
could.
So before we let you go, we love to finish on cultural recommendations. So is there anything that you've been watching, reading, listening to recently that you would like to let us know about?
Yeah, this is the question that I'm going to find hard, I think. I had a baby and I have nothing stays in my head. But just finished White Lotus. Everyone's talking about it.
Yeah.
If you for whatever reason you haven't seen it, it's great. And I loved the end. I think
I'm
the
yet
end.
to watch the second series, so I've been like avoiding spoilers like the plague. Like I can't.
I'm not gonna spoil it, but I felt like the end was a little bit of me. And I'm reading another book. Apart from Miriam Toews, is it's called Prawn: An Oral History by Polly Barton. It's not out yet, which is annoying of me. But she just was like, oh, no one talks about porn ever. I'm scared to talk about porn, so I'm gonna have, I think it's like 19 or 20 conversations with her friends about porn, and then she just it's like a transcript, and you just read them.
That sounds so
And
cool.
it's brilliant. It's so good, and it kind of, obviously all the conversations are really interesting on porn, and I do never talk about porn, and so that's like on the face of it is really interesting. But I also just love this idea that like anything can be a book, and we just need to talk about things that make us feel ashamed and put them in the book, and it's all about like communication and opening up the silence. And yeah, I just like feels like a very kind of hopeful premise for a book. So yes, they're my recommendations.
Love that. Some excellent recommendations.
Oh, I've just watched The Bear.
Oh my god, it's so good.
I found
I slept through the last episode.
What?
I know, and I still, and my boyfriend was like, you really like it. It's really important that you watch
really important. It's pretty key.
It's like I feel like the last episode is big, but I need to get back there.
Yeah, the first episode was just like 20 minutes of like intense anxiety.
I found this is the thing, like, and I really feel like it should be like a caveat for people that are going into it, because no one told me that you're gonna be stressed. I was stressed for 8 hours. Like, honestly, everyone's shouting. Why is everyone shouting? Just everyone shouts over each other. Nobody can hear each other, and it is the best, like, fabulous portrayal of real life conversation I think I've seen in a long time. But let me tell you, my brain overloaded several times.
That's well, I mean, it perfectly captures working in hospitality because I was just in a state of severe anxiety for like the decade that I worked in hospitality. Just a constant state of stress. No, it's so good. Yeah, I would definitely recommend that as well.
And before we leave you, can we please ask you if there is anything exciting coming up? Maybe a novel
We've heard a novel, as it was mentioned.
Yeah. I mean, I'm writing a novel.
Oh my God.
But it's gonna be a while. It's gonna be a while, guys.
We can wait. We can wait.
We will be here waiting.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm not really prepared to write a novel, but I'm doing it. And it's okay. It's okay. It's not...
We're at early stages.
I see that we're at that point. Okay. We'll talk to you in a few months.
Fine.
Everything's fine. Oh my God.
I mean, how are you balancing that and a baby? Like, you are actually like a superhero.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not. I am a little. Some days depends on the day.
Depends on the day, depends on the time, depends on the baby.
Yeah,
I tell you.
I feel you. We cannot wait to read it, and I mean, we would love to have you back on to discuss the novel when it finally comes into the world.
That's us officially booking you now. That's it.
So listeners, the link to buy Send Nudes is in the show notes. Have a look and get it ordered if you've not read it already. As I said, paperback publication is the 19th of January, so get on it. And also please do rate, review and subscribe to A Pair of Bookends, as it helps to boost us in the charts. Where can our listeners find you? Not to stalk you, but is there any socials that they can follow you on to follow your work?
I have Instagram, Saba_Sams. And I kind of have Twitter. Like, I technically have an account, but I almost never am on there. So
I mean, it's a
bit
chaotic at the minute, so
graveyard at the minute.
The best. But yes, thank you so much for coming on, and thank you to Bloomsbury for connecting us. This has been amazing. So thank you so much. And
bye. Thank you so much.